Everyone. Hi there, everyone in the world. He's back. It's the one and only Guy Anderson. Hello, Guy. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right. Good to see you again. Obviously, we've been talking about Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids and the Tartarian Empire, which did exist. It is not a myth. I can't believe anyone would utter those ridiculous words. It's a myth. Go tell that to the giant monolithic buildings. Go tell that to the scholars that have said the dates have been changed by at least 1,000 years, and you being one such scholar with more information than most I've met. So today, what we're going to do is start off with answering some of the questions that we invited the lovely audience to ask you, and you were wonderfully received. People are delighted to know you. A lot of people already were aware of you, and that makes me so happy for you as well, because my audience are just the best in the world. They're fantastic. They're informed, they're eager, and they love to learn. So we're going to go into the questions here, which of course have disappeared in this moment. We just did this. It was right there, wasn't it? You witnessed it
Yes.
right there. Here we go. So I'm going to give you a couple of the the lovely, because there's a lot of respect shown. Nicole Louie, love the show conversation. Thank you, Danny and Guy. Going to explore your website. So I gave everyone access to your website. I showed them it, and brilliant. It was amazing. So people can get a lot of stuff there. Okay, this is from Andy McGrath. He says, "There's no way York Minster was built with just wooden hammers and chisels. You only have to look at the detail on the building, and it's amazing." Now, what do you have to say to that? A question most people will ask.
Yeah, I totally agree with him. It would have been laser cut. Yeah, you can't do that with hammer and chisel. And the other thing is that you'll often find that there's no evidence of a quarry locally having been able to produce the quantity of stone needed. And there'll be no remnants of it either. There won't be any evidence. So this is the problem with most of these kind of buildings. There is very rarely any evidence or record. Sorry, my little dog's moving about.
Show us to Arthur.
Hello,
He's
Arthur.
so cute. Beautiful boy, loving on his daddy. Oh,
We got him tangled. There you go, little man.
oh,
He sits on a little chair next to me normally, but he wanted to get on my lap for a bit.
oh.
Yeah, it's the same with all of them, and it's a bit like the Great Pyramid of Giza. Some people say that it was built using a ramp, but there's no evidence of a ramp ever being constructed, and there would be, and there's no tooling left or found or buried. And also you'll find the same problem with the workforce that would be needed. If you look at the area these places are built, not just York Minster, but all of the cathedrals and the large churches, they're all built around the same time. Where did the skilled labour come from? Now, the narrative is that people would have travelled all over to come and help build them, but they were happening in their towns too. So, the whole backstory is very, very easily picked apart. And the precision, you can't do that with hammer and chisel. It's laser cut. These are all laser cut.
Yeah, and everybody has a story. Oh, the pyramids. We know how they did it. They started from the top down. They built sand around it and they chiseled down. And, no one is ever able to give a succinct explanation. Then we deal with the ETs and their technology, which I'm much more
Mm.
inclined to trust that, because we are a star-faring, solar system, clearly, whether or not we're all stuck inside the same matrix. And I include the ETs in that, because how could it not be? The more my mind expands and I learn, I'm also thinking now, well, okay, the ETs are coming back and forth. Are they also not part of this construction? And the more we talk about them, the more we're also kind of creating that, because words and thoughts create the matter that obviously solidifies itself and becomes what we see. But it doesn't still answer the questions that we need answered. So, we'll get deeper into that. But York Minster is definitely a beautiful example
Mm.
of a stunning architectural wonder. Jeff K here says, "Are the clones the NPCs? What's the percentage?" So NPC, to those that don't know, is apparently this non, I've forgotten it already, non something.
Non-playing character, yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on calling people that for a start?
Yeah, it's a terminology that we've just become used to using, I think. But yes, he's right. but it goes back a bit further than that. This isn't the fact that they're non-playing characters. It's to do with memory. So the people that are awake are often awake because they carry the memory of their ancestors in their DNA, which we all do. We know that that's scientifically proven. That's how we carry memory. So deep within us, we know that this isn't how we're supposed to live. The things that are being done, the food that we eat, the buildings that we live in, and the cathedrals and so on, like York Minster, we know that these aren't really built for religious practices and worship. They were built for something else. And the same people would have stared out of the window at school. Nothing would have really resonated or connected. Things don't make sense. So you become less likely to obey and follow the mainstream because in built is this information telling you that this is wrong. What you're being taught is wrong. What you're being told is wrong. But if you are the descendant from cloning, which took place in the 1800s to repopulate, then there is no memory. Your ancestors started with a clean sheet. So your great, 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 great grandparents knew nothing. They were told this is how everything is, and this is the history leading up until now, rewritten by the Jesuits. We've introduced periods of time like the Dark Ages, and this is how we live. Everything before that was primitive, and there's been a slow evolution where actually we've gone backwards, and the previous civilization was far more advanced than we are.
Very true.
So if you don't have that information inside you, then you're not going to have the ability to question these things. It won't You won't be at odds. So it's a little bit like the left and right hemisphere are battling with each other. One's taking in, well, this is what I've been told, and the other side saying, well, that doesn't make any sense. So these NPCs really are people that Dolores Cannon described as being soulless, but I don't believe that. I think they just don't have the memory in their DNA because they're more recent, if you like, into the
Yeah.
population.
Yeah, two things to that. Number one, when I was a nursery nurse in one of my lives here, as before I became a therapist, I was a nursery nurse, and there was a lot of teaching and training around newborn babies and being a maternity nurse. And I remember this one little newborn, this little girl that was born, and when she came out, she was pulling the moodiest face ever, and people laughed, and I thought that was unkind because the mother's laying there. But obviously there's a different detachment from people delivering so many babies, and for the mother, it's the very first time. Well, that same day, the mother was having an issue getting the baby girl to latch on to her nipple to breastfeed. And I was there with her and another nurse, a senior, I'm not a nurse, there was a senior nurse, I was there training. And I remember this little baby was screaming and raging, and the midwife picked the baby up and held her like this and said to the mother, "You have a firecracker here." And I said to the senior nurse, the midwife, I said, "But babies, this is like 30 years ago. I said, but babies, they come in they're a blank canvas." And the nurse said, "No, I've been doing this for 25 years. They come in with their personality." And people could also say that about, that's our past lives, that's
Yeah.
whatever. But so interesting. And so the end of that question is from Jeff is, are the clones the NPCs, and what is the percentage of humanity?
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yes, 80%. 80% of the population are descended from clones. So they have
Yeah.
nothing. There's nothing past the 1800s. Even if they go onto ancestry.com, they'll find that whatever they're given will be fictitious. They won't be able to substantiate any of it. The parish records would have been destroyed in a fire or a flood. And so ancestry.com, which is owned by Blackstone,
Oh,
will just put forward a load of information connecting you to other things that's all fictitious. So yeah, it's unfortunately about 80%. So you us screaming at people to wake up and telling people they shouldn't have this medical intervention. That isn't a condensation trail; it's a chemical trail. That 5G is potentially dangerous. It's pointless telling them because they their brain isn't designed, or their DNA isn't designed to question. It's more designed to obey, and we know that is inbuilt, but it's a lot stronger with the clones. So yeah, unfortunately, it's 80%. And you might question that you're awake, but your sibling isn't.
mm-hmm.
And that's because it's no different to my granddad. Was well, my dad's bald, looks just like me. My granddad was bald. His father looks just like me. We all wear glasses. My brother doesn't wear glasses. He's taller than everybody else and has blonde hair and blue eyes. So it's some things are passed on and some things aren't, but also it can take significant trauma to wake somebody up.
Mhm.
It can take something quite significant, life changing almost, to make you question lots of other things. But also, in contrary to that, it can be that some people have so much going on in their lives, and so much misfortune or a series of illnesses or so on, lots of bad things happen to them, that they don't start looking at the narrative and questioning history and what's going on because it's overwhelming. They just can't cope with it right now. So with those people, we've just got to be there for them when they do wake up. But
Mhm.
you can't go out into the streets telling everybody that they're contrails, not they're chemtrails, not contrails, and you can't tell them that all of our history is a lie because they won't understand it. To them, it isn't. To them, everything been told is how it is,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they've got nothing inside. There's no inner dialogue battling that out.
Yeah. It's so fascinating. People do that when some on the way in and on the way out. Like if they want to trash someone, like this happened to me recently, with a load of women, all influenced, and making up absolute complete stories, complete awful stories to try to decimate a character. And that's what people do, like out and
Mm.
out lies on YouTube to try and remove, my character personality from the work I'm doing, which I will never allow, of course. But it was really interesting to watch it, extremely painful and excruciating because there's so many horrible things said that aren't true. And I think, what on earth possesses someone to get whipped up into a frenzy, and everyone plugged into
Ah,
the same, right? Yeah? The
yeah, there is
same.
a reason for that, I
Go on
think.
then, share it.
Well, social media. I mean, we've got this phenomenon called the keyboard warrior,
Hmm.
and I think that the reason for that is that if you live in a world where you have no voice, let's say that you were overlooked or neglected as a child, that you were sat at the back of the classroom, didn't really have any friends, or you were bullied, never fitted in, and maybe at work no one talks to you, or you don't connect with people. It's I can't think of a better way to describe it, but kind of one of life's victims. All you ever get is abuse, and all of a sudden you've got a platform where you can appear to be strong and bold and courageous and the bully. You can now be the bully because you're not in a room with them. These people wouldn't say it to your face. I mean, if they did, there are going to be people out there that would perhaps be, you know, a little bit aggressive as a direct result of being attacked. But it's unlikely these people will say it to your face. So, and
Hmm.
I've been in that situation before, and this sounds a little bit, and I have no ego. That was beaten out of me,
Uh-huh.
physically beaten out of me. I don't have one. Um, but I've had this before. Someone came up against me and in my face and said, blah, 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 blah. And I said to them, look, with the greatest respect, I'm a member of Mensa, I'm a master Freemason, and I'm an ordained church minister. If you want me to attack you back, this is going to be a bumpy ride. So stop talking now, or I will destroy you in front of everybody. And that's the last thing I want to do to anyone. So just stop. And they shut up and walked away.
Hmm.
And I think it's very rare that someone's prepared to do that, to
Hmm.
actually challenge you to your face. And every now and again, you know, you can either take it on the chin and walk away, or sometimes you have to say something. And that
Hmm.
was a rare occasion where I needed to do that.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh, good
but
for you.
but it's a keyboard warrior thing. It's a platform, isn't it, that where you can actually attack people with no consequence to it. And I don't think that many of these people would do it, actually physically if you were in the same building as them. And I get it. I do get it. I don't engage. I block and delete if someone's saying something silly. And also, I get hit with a lot of God-fearing people who haven't read the Bible properly, because if they did, they wouldn't go to church because it quite specifically tells you inside there that it's praying something you do on your own. You don't go to a building. You certainly don't listen to someone else. So I'm attacked by these people quite regularly, um, who say that you know, God said this, God said that, blah blah blah, and they're quoting things from a book they've never really read. So that tends to happen quite a lot. So I block and delete.
Yeah.
I don't engage because they're absorbing your energy, and if they haven't
Yeah.
got anything nice to say, my argument would be switch off, unfollow, unsubscribe, get on with your life, go and do something else.
Yeah.
Don't project negativity onto people, because if you were in the case of people that are God fearing, my question would be, if God is watching what you just typed, then you've probably got a bigger problem than I have to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. No, good ideas to definitely just like kind of move along and let them all spin out and do whatever they're going
Mm,
to do for whatever reason and just don't involve. Because once you engage, you plug in and there's a war of like frequencies, energy frequencies, and like I ain't got
mm.
time for that. I got a job to do. I got a mission, and I'm staying focused.
Yeah.
Um, just to go back to the clones. So I know two men in particular who I do believe have had clone bodies, and they both were in secret space programs. One of them is a man called Chris O'Connor, who's fascinating, and it also had experience on Saturn. We don't hear too much about Saturn, the planet, but of course the American military has been flying to all the frigging planets in the universe, right, or in the solar system, lying about it. That's why I do my conferences, obviously, to bring these people forward. So Chris O'Connor had a clone body for many different reasons, right, as a soldier in the SSP. Also, my friend Tony Rodriguez. Tony Rodriguez was working on a spaceship. It was actually a hollowed out submarine because people, because of the lies we're told, oh, making a spaceship is very difficult. Well, I worked in satellite manufacture for years. Let me tell you, Kevlar, honeycomb, carbon fiber, epoxy resins, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. It's not difficult to create these amazing things that go into space. And anyway, Tony Rodriguez was working on this submarine spacecraft. He might have been on Mars at the time, I forget, which again sounds ridiculous. And people go, titter, titter. Because if you haven't heard of it, it sounds insane. But people should be watching my channel and watching my interviews and they'll get a clue. So Tony got pretty much burnt to death in a horrible accident and was given. He wakes up, so they've extracted his soul. It's back in the body. The soul animates the body. So, like even a clone, to animate a human body, that I don't believe they're all soulless. You know what I mean? I find I have a hard time, but I've never met
Mm.
anyone, ever met a single individual that's ever given me every single, we get bits we can think about, we can expand, we can make their ideas work for a while, but still it's a seeker's journey, individual journey. So, I take, as I know you do, everything and like put it together and make it make sense for each person, but it's not going to be the same sense for each individual person. So these two clone bodies, very loving men, very emotional men, and I believe them. I believe them. Have you met people who've told you they're clones?
No, but I've spoken to someone quite well known that has been cloned, or they allege that they have, and a lot of their research has helped me, and a lot of their work, and that's Donald Marshall.
Donald
Um,
Marshall, okay.
yeah, now Donald Marshall, his stepfather, I believe it's his stepfather, was a member of the Illuminati, and he was cloned at one of the dumb uh, sites in America. That's where they do the cloning in the dumb bases, the deep underground military bases. That's where it takes place.
Hmm.
And he was cloned as a young child, and so a lot of information that I've put out there has come from him. And as I said, I have spoken to him. He's got books out there, and he was interviewed quite heavily in 2012 when he started talking about it,
Mm.
and then kind of went off the radar a little bit. And he's had problems. He has to sleep in a Faraday cage,
Wow.
because it's during REM, when you're going to into sleep mode, if you like, that's when trauma is uploaded to you from your damaged or abused clone, and your memory of what you've done today is transferred to the clone, so the clone can go out and talk to people, and it knows everything you've done. It's up to date, so to speak. And the deal is, if you toe the line, if you carry on acting or putting music out there, or you do the interview you didn't want to do, or you go to the press conference in the other side of the world that you're not well enough to attend, If you toe the line, don't speak out. Your memory is uploaded to the clone when you go to sleep and you enter REM. If you stop playing ball, they'll send it the other way. So they'll abuse your clone, maybe even kill it.
Hmm.
And then they'll upload that to you when you go to sleep. Sorry, I'm just getting over it.
Oh, bless your heart. And I'm so grateful that you are seeing me today. No,
Oh, that's all right.
that's
I'm,
why
I'm,
Arthur was sitting on your lap because he's giving you
he
love. He
knows.
knows Daddy's
Yeah, he
not very
knows.
well.
I'd sort
But
of loath to blow my nose because I did it yesterday just before I started talking to someone, and it bled. And I
oh
thought, oh
no,
God! And I
darling.
had a meeting with Iconic, David
Yeah,
Icke's
David,
Gareth,
yeah.
yeah. And I
Um,
thought, oh no, so I'm talking to them. I've got tissue paper
oh,
wedged up my nose on Zoom. Um,
oh.
yeah, and that's basically how it works. So the um, the clone, if you like, is a backup for you, but also it's used in all sorts of nefarious activities in these
Mhm.
centres. So you could basically, if you and I were world leaders, we have clones of ourselves in one of these bases, and the clones then do whatever they want with the clones of the victims, if you like. It could be you and I decide we're going to do something unpleasant to a movie star or a singer, for fun, but it's our clones that do it. But when we wake up, we've got the memory of it happening. And we're like, wow, what did we do last night? That was fantastic. We did this, did that, and then ended someone's life, someone famous. So that's how it works. So you'll see that when a clone doesn't follow the rules, and it's gone too far, there'll be a heart attack or an aneurysm. So they'll upload the trauma, and it will lead to a heart attack or an aneurysm, and that will often be the reason why famous people, you know, leave this realm in the way that they do. So if you look at someone like Bernie Mac, for example, or George Michael, who took on Sony, heart attack on Christmas Day, that's trauma being uploaded.
Okay. Obviously, what you're saying is very, it's fascinating, interesting, controversial. Of course, some people will
Mm.
get triggered. We just tell people just take a breath because we need to have these conversations in this world. Because if we don't, a lot of people don't even have the mind to bring anything like this to mind in order to let themselves expand and really understand what it is we're doing on this planet, how we're living, what the reality is within the reality, within the reality, within the construct. You mentioned Faraday cage. A lot of people don't know. Well, of course, I mean, why would they know what a Faraday cage is? They haven't worked
Yes,
in the space
sure.
industry like me, or so. Can you tell people briefly what is a Faraday cage?
Well, basically, I mean, we don't have one, but a lot of households have one already. It's a microwave oven. So it's basically um, a metal box, if you like, that stops harmful signals being able to come in and, of course, leave. So one thing you can do, if you have a mobile phone and you have a microwave, and perhaps your house is quite small, or you live in a flat or a studio apartment, put your phone into your microwave at night, so you're not receiving the radiation from it. So it's basically something that blocks out EMF, and it's through that the information is transferred. So if you had been cloned and you weren't towing the line,
Mhm.
when you go to sleep, you can actually buy, some beds, you may have seen some beds have a sort of curtain that goes over them. They attach to the ceiling. It's like a net almost like a mosquito net. Well, they do those that actually are threaded with copper very finely, and some people that have been cloned that are on the naughty step sleep under those. So
Mhm.
it's blocking signal. There's no signal. So if you were sat inside it, even though it's thin like a net curtain, and you've got your mobile phone in your hand, you won't have a signal. It'll block the signal, so nothing can get to you, and you can't obviously, likewise, can't get a signal out of it either.
Mm. Fascinating. Zen Holm Emin here says, I love this. Nikola Tesla diddles and loves pigeons. And he really did love pigeons. And when he was living in the hotel at the end of his life, that was one of his great loves. And they would come to the window and he would tend them on the roof, apparently. What do you know about him and his pigeons?
Yes, he bred pigeons, but I've spent the last 5 years trying to find video footage of him. There's always someone quite clever who'll say, well, they didn't have video back then. And of course, that's not what I mean. I'm talking about movie footage.
Hmm.
And so I've there's a little doubt in my mind as to whether or not he was someone that was part of the system, someone that maybe didn't even exist or existed in a different way to what we've been told. Um, and it is because I've not been able to find any descendants from his family, even from his brother, and his sister. I've not been able to find anything, and I've been looking for a long time. I've talked to his museum, his university, nothing. I can't find anything at all. It's the footage that I find very strange. The whole story surrounding him is very weird too. How he got these visions in the same way that his mother did, that he was talking to the Venetians and things came to him so powerfully that he couldn't determine whether or not it was actually happening or it was a vision. He couldn't sometimes determine the two. His disappearance when he was at college and everyone thought he had drowned, and gets into gambling and so on. It's all rather odd. Arrives in New York penniless. He was robbed on the boat on the way over, and his whole story is fantastical.
Mm.
So I am very much on the fence with him. Of course, a lot of people that follow Nikola Tesla will probably know the conspiracy theory about him and Frank Zappa.
No.
So, well, Frank Zappa. You know that there's really only one photograph that's popular of Nikola Tesla, and it's the one on the front cover of my first book. It's the side angle of him with the moustache, probably in his, I would guess, late 30s, early 40s, perhaps. There's some of him as a child, which would be very difficult to quantify. And
Hmm.
then there's the very frail old man that we see. He's very gaunt. But of course, by that time, apparently, he's living off crackers. Um, well, if you look at a side profile of Frank Zappa and look at that really famous image of Nikola Tesla, and I'd urge everybody to jump on Google and do that, you'll be where a lot of people are. Frank Zappa was not first and foremost a musician. He was a scientist. All of his music is based on frequency. So some people believe that Frank Zappa and Nikola Tesla are the same person.
Mm. Interesting.
Yeah, and either Frank Zappa was used to create the story of Nikola Tesla, because most people, certainly my age and older, and maybe people a bit younger than me, people maybe that are in their 40s or 30s, probably didn't hear about Nikola Tesla at school. They'd have heard about Thomas Edison. Well, the reason we had lighting at school is because of a Tesla invention, a patented invention, nothing to do with Thomas Edison. So it's very strange that he's become more popular in recent years. And I think that's to do with the car manufacturer and the sinister character called Elon Musk. Why didn't we learn about him earlier on? Why is it more recently that people have been talking about him? And that's very strange. So could it be that they created somebody, called him Nikola Tesla, and it's based upon Frank Zappa, the image of Frank Zappa, because it's identical. Or could it be that that Nikola Tesla, and this is what some people think, Nikola Tesla went back in time and forward in time. He could time travel, and that is allegedly the files that John G. Trump never
Mhm.
handed back to the FBI when he removed everything from
Yeah.
his hotel rooms.
Hmm.
Now, is it possible that Frank Zappa is Nikola Tesla,
Hmm.
and he's time travelled, brought his younger self forward in time to be born or positioned at the right time for Frank Zappa?
Mm.
Military family and so on, a bit like Jim Morrison. So there's a few things, and if anyone's interested in Tesla, and remember Tesla is an anagram of steal, as in theft, um, look into the Frank Zappa conspiracy, because
Mm.
that one's fascinating. So I don't know that all of me wants to believe that he existed, that he did everything he did. But when his museum says they can't find any video footage of him either because he was camera shy, that was when I hit a wall that I've not been able to climb over, because
Yeah.
he was paid to give talks and lectures He
Hmm.
was paid to attend dinner parties. This was not a shy man.
Hmm.
There is no reason for Einstein and Edison to have video footage out there, but not Tesla. Now, some people have said to me, "Of course he existed. Of course he did." And like I said, I want him to have. I'm a huge fan. I've spent years researching him. I want him to have existed. My answer, I suppose, when someone says to me, "Of course he existed," is thank God for that. Finally, I've met someone that's got a photograph of them together
Hmm.
or has the video footage I've been looking for. Because without those things, or can introduce me to his niece or nephew.
Hmm.
And if you can't do any of those, then I'm sorry. I
Hmm.
have to, for something to convince me of being certain, I have to physically see it.
Yeah, I'm the same, physical evidence. Well, it's
Yeah.
interesting. So many things you raised there because I mean, people that watch my channel know that I joke about him being my boyfriend. Oh, we can't say that anymore, by the way. I can't joke that Billy Carson and Praveen Mohan, my friends who were at my conference, are my boyfriend. Otherwise, people get triggered and lit up. Or, oh, Danny's changed. No, can we not have fun? Can you old ladies just chill out, please? Goodness me. Like seriously, people are getting a little bit too serious these days, and I don't know quite what's going on. But in his original book, the book I read, which was My Inventions, Nikola Tesla, My Inventions, the first time I bought it 8 years ago and read it and studied it, it was a collection of papers put together that he wrote for the young engineer or the young and upcoming engineers of that day. And he talks about his brother dying. There was an accident with a horse. He doesn't mention a sister. And then there's all the, well, he was adopted. There's no talk of that. His parents were brilliant geniuses. He writes beautifully about that. Well, the book got moldy when I was living in Costa Rica in the jungle, so I replaced it, got another one, loads of pages missing. And that is what they do. It goes all the way back again to, let's just say, a minimum of the Egyptians. Every time a new pharaoh came in, the pharaoh that was just on the way out or killed or exited or murdered, they chiseled away, they chipped, they tried to erase everything to do with that pharaoh. Unless they liked the temple that was being built, then they would expand on it and take the credit for it. It happens every time a president gets into America, executive orders, they cancel the ones before, they put their own in. It will be very easy when you look at the forced history of Edison on us. We've been tried to be forced to accept that Thomas Edison was the one, with the current system, direct current, and that they deliberately eliminated everything and anything possible to do with Tesla to get rid of him, to make us forget him. That is one complete suggestion or potential explanation as to why you have not yet found a video. And I'm racking my brains. I'm sure I saw a video on him. I've been obsessing on this beautiful man for years. I am sure I saw him in a black and white film at a dinner table at some kind of an event. I'm sure I did, but I can't prove it.
Mm.
No, I can't. And again, the internet, they're redacting every day. They are
Mm.
taking away our friggin' history. Those filth monsters, aren't they? They, the system, the elites,
I call them parasites.
Yeah,
There's nothing elitist about them apart from their
no,
cash flow. But yeah, like I said, it's really worth stressing that I want him to have existed because, and I would love to have an hour with him if I could bring someone back from the past. Because what I'd like to ask him was, where was he getting this information from? Was it the Venetians? Because if he truly existed, then what he was doing was reverse engineering technology from the previous civilization. How? How did he know about this? I don't think it would have been visions that came to him. I think that this information was either being downloaded to him or someone, perhaps in a different dimension or someone involved in the deep state, was giving him this information, saying, "Look what we found. We can't get it to work." Um, so that's someone that I would love to spend an hour with, with a truth serum and say,
Mhm.
right, now I'm going to ask you for an hour all of these questions. It would help me because I firmly believe that it's better to be proven wrong about something than spend the rest of your life believing a lie. And
Yeah.
we know that they've invented people over the years. We know that they've inverted stories about people. I mean, look at Napoleon. The chances of him actually having existed are so remote. And we've got the same with Shakespeare. You know, it's only now coming out that it was a committee of people, not one person. Leonardo da Vinci was one person in a large family that were creating this work. It wasn't one person. And obviously Napoleon's based on Apollyon, the god, the destroyer. So you know, again, no living descendants, and away we go. Um, you know, by the time he's 25, he's written romantic novels. He's the most powerful man in Europe, and you know, it's like,
Mhm,
hold
mhm.
on a minute.
I'm going to give you, and I'm so glad you're so open. And you're a scholar, you're an academic, you're a researcher, you're also a very, very open man to all and every possibility, which is great because it helps people like me and you blend our worlds and share information. So when I very first read the first book I mentioned on Nicola, I was crying at one point because I had never read anybody else thus far that was able to do something that I've been able to do my whole life, or to be more specific, things that would happen to me as a child. So I was what you would call a psychic child. I woke up knowing adults were liars. One of my first memories ever is my birth. Another first memory is actually being put back in my crib by a beautiful extraterrestrial. I had experiences from birth to this very day. One of them was quite terrifying. I'd be in the back bedroom at our house, and always the same wall, and huge orbs would come bouncing through that wall, different colors, different sizes, different tempos, different depth of vibration and sound. Some would growl, others were higher frequency, they were angelic, they were off to a different audible expression altogether. And sometimes I used to call them my lights. I didn't know the word orb as a little girl of 4, 5, and 6, and 7. And this one particular time I remember that sticks, when I was reading the Nikola Tesla book, I just had a breakdown because it was exactly what I would see. So an orb would come through, and sometimes it would just hover, and then it would literally just crack open. And then within it, I would see a city, a world, a life, and I could hear every sound of every person. I could hear them breathing, and it was so intense. It was so intense. And I would scream and scream, and a parent might bother to come in or not because they were tired of this child that was always screaming, always seeing, and always experiencing things that people thought were, there's something wrong with Dani. There's something, she's not quite right. Well, to this day, they say that. Luckily, I still don't care. But, it wasn't until I read Nicola's book, I'm like, well, that I was able to do that. These things would come to me, they would drop into me. And so I can relate to him, that being an actual fact that that does happen. Lots of children and young people get they have these experiences that are unexplainable, and then you got the I always bash on the Christians, the nasty ones, not the good ones that say, oh, that's the devil. How the bloody hell do you know, Doris? Because I can see the devil standing behind you, love. Do you know what I mean? I'm also an ordained minister. So,
These are the people that are never going to get into the place they seek because you don't go around saying things like that. I mean, you know, anybody who's read the Bible, I mean, we know the Bible's half of it's missing and most of it's badly translated on
yeah.
purpose, but the guts of it, we know that Jesus, he would say what he had to say and then walk away. He didn't, he didn't call people names for not believing him or attack them. And this is what I was saying earlier on for the people that attack others online that claim to be Christian or God fearing. Is that really the message or are you a good example of a messenger of God's word? The things that you say and the way that you say them, or the way that you attack people, and also the way you force your views upon people. You could put a post up. I did one the other day on Facebook saying, "Who is God?" Because it's different things to different people. The God in the Old Testament is very clearly someone different, or the gods, because it's plural, isn't it, in the Old Testament, is very different to the God in the New Testament. Is it the same thing? Or are they two different entities, or three, or several? What's going on there? People say, well, actually, it's the same person. But wow, you've met him. And I'm sorry I'm saying him, but I'm just saying
Yeah,
God
no,
as
that's
him because
okay.
it's easier to describe.
Yeah,
Um,
she doesn't
you've
mind.
met him. Wow, that's incredible. So, what did he look like? No, I'm just telling you because I know. Oh, wow. So, this is fantastic. So I can base the rest of my life and all of my thoughts on religion upon the fact that you just think something. And that's it, isn't it? I mean, I don't think religion is something you force upon other people. I don't think your beliefs are something that you should force upon other people. I think who is God? What is our connection to the Creator? These are things that are a kind of personal journey and also a very personal opinion. And I don't think they should be projected. But these very people you're talking about, they're the first ones to attack when you say something they don't agree with, or um, that's blasphemous,
Yeah.
and you know, wow, if the God that you so fear and believe in so much could read what you've said, and let's be honest, if he is what you say he is, he's just read what you've written. You know where you're going, and it isn't up, because that is not what it's about.
Yeah.
And it is
Yeah.
true, isn't it? The most judgmental people in the world go to church on a Sunday.
Exactly. And they do it to be seen. And it's so interesting, again, looking at everyone's character now as we are, we're scanning and screaming like, anyone who's like going to scream and cry and why are you talking to this person? Why are you doing this? And what about me? And that's a handler. That is a victim, not
Absolutely.
a handler. And people need to get a clue about people that behave that way. Wow. Just watch out. Let's try and get through some more of these questions, my love, because I
Mm.
know we're only doing an hour because we've got to take care of your health here. This is a really tricky question to
I'm
answer.
muting every time I need to like cough.
Oh, sorry. Listen, this is a huge question, but just give
Mm,
us as much of a synopsis as you can, and then people need to
sure.
go get your book. This is from Lisa Kroll. Great interview. I just happened to be reading a book on Tartaria. What happened to all the people from Tartaria?
Well, I would say for the long answer, then you need to read my book. But the short answer is you ate them.
You ate them.
You ate them. Yeah,
Okay, let's
the
expand.
majority of the people that fell during the Civil and Napoleonic Wars were used as fertilizer. You can Google that. We know Google and Wikipedia is not the place to go for factual information, but
Mhm.
even on there, it will tell you that for people in England or Britain, most of the bodies that were brought back were used as fertilizer. The bones were used to make bone china, and the skulls and some other bones were used in the catacombs to serve as a trophy cabinet and also a warning to the previous civilization, because the Napoleonic Wars and the Civil Wars were basically Tartarian people killing each other without knowing they were on the same side. So they wiped thousands, millions of people out by getting them to kill each other, which is normally what civil wars are about.
Yeah,
Depopulate, and also the teeth in the Napoleonic Wars were a lot of them were removed to make dentures. So Waterloo teeth became one of the most expensive and sought after dentures you could get in England at the time. So we ate them indirectly through fertilizing crops. We ate off them if we had bone china, and if you had dentures at the time, you even used their teeth to do it.
it's just so grisly and macabre, and
Mm.
it makes a person feel all kind of inside like grim, like because it's just so dark. It's just so
That's the
terrifying.
people in charge, isn't it?
Exactly, that's my
Mm.
point. This is what's been done to us,
Mm.
to humanity. And again, it doesn't help with the degradation of the brain and the
Mm.
physiology and the anatomy of people and the foods we eat and what we did to the cows, feeding them their own. Anyway, okay.
Yes, same thing.
Right,
Exactly the
same
same.
thing. Because that's how they see us as cattle, as meat to be
Yeah,
slaughtered, eaten,
and they
fertilized.
do. Yeah,
Right. So you mentioned the catacombs. So this is France, underground,
they're
miles and
everywhere.
miles.
Hmm.
Yeah, but okay. And so, but this is a really, this really serves as a digestible answer because people have said, how come there's 4 million skulls in the catacombs under Paris, let's say, when there weren't that many people back then, or so we're told, because everything is a lie. Everything. How the hell? How the hell do they know there are 8 billion people today? They don't. Someone said that.
No,
I don't believe a single living person has all the answers, and I do not believe that particular one. So the catacombs that you mentioned there, thank you. That's a very digestible answer. Here, this guy Ken says Joe Rogan and others with Sky high sub counts, meaning many millions of, okay, I'll come back to your face. You don't get numbers like that if you're not promoted, period. So I've got my theory. Let me just bring you up here on There are people that are chosen to put certain informations out. There are people that are chosen not to. I, in my work over these many years, from many years, decades, I've been in the field of spirituality, I've been on television, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Space industry, right? I've gathered a lot of information. I know for a fact that people are kept away from each other. People have been kept away from me. Oh no, don't talk to her, don't talk to him, today, the last two times we tried to get together, crashing down, my whole system just bailed yesterday, and this happens all the time, but we are stronger than that, and we are finding each other. And I've completely forgotten. Oh yeah, you pulled a face,
Yeah.
grimaced. Joe Rogan, go for it. I have no
The,
opinion, so I don't know what you're going to say.
they're right. What they've said is right. So, but basically, what happens is, and with the exception of some people out there that that continue to spread the word and don't really respond to bully boy tactics, a lot of them are got at. Now, Joe Rogan, we know that he started off in his spare room and he built the channel up, and he was already quite well known, but the podcast started to do really well. And then came the pandemic, and he started talking about the medical intervention and why people shouldn't take it. And it was all a little bit odd. His children were approached at school, and they were told something was going to happen to Daddy, and Daddy needed to apologise, and he did. He publicly apologised and retracted what he had said. Within moments, his podcast is sold to Spotify for millions of dollars, and now he only goes into certain subjects, and he will target. He'll attack the system, the deep state. He'll say things he's allowed to say, things already out there in the public domain. So he was got at, and in exchange for being got at, he was paid an incredible amount of money. They're controlled. So Joe Rogan went from being someone I had an awful lot of respect for someone, for me, that's sold out.
Right, right. That's sad to hear. Of course, I don't know that because I don't know him personally, but I didn't even know that backstory. But yeah, they'll let you go a certain amount and then and they can take anyone
Yeah.
channel
Yeah,
down
I mean, I've
and
been
they do.
threatened, but I don't have the reach that these people do.
Yeah.
Richard Vobes gets people saying that they're going to follow him, that they try and find out where he lives, and people on YouTube actually asking other people to find him and track him down. So we know,
Oh,
and
poor
he's such a
Richard.
lovely bloke. But
So lovely.
but he's still in comparison. I mean, Joe Rogan was, up in the millions of views. That's when you become a problem. And the reason that I suppose David Icke hasn't been got at, just as an example, is because he's fixed to one particular subject. He was ridiculed on TV, so sometimes they'll do that instead, or they might find things on your hard drive that actually weren't there, and all of a sudden you become seen as a monster. So there are lots of ways of them doing it, and I think with David Icke it was ridicule, but he didn't take any notice. He carried on doing it. He's banned from loads of countries. It hindered his book sales, but he kept going, and that's why he's not a multimillionaire, and Joe Rogan is.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, so interesting. The things people say, like, oh, they've got a demon, they're an alcoholic. That's all it takes, a little
Yeah,
whittling away of
they don't
stuff.
know what they're
It's called
talking about.
character. Yeah, exactly.
Mm,
Character assassination, soul assassination. But it'll bounce back on them, those that lie
mm,
and try to
mm.
create and try to control and handle. It comes back. Let's have a look at this one. Alice Seskithorpe. Okay, I remember my best friend who's in her 80s. Her mother spoke a lot about her mother's stories of the world fairs and the technology at that time, the moving sidewalks, the
Mm.
illumination of the fairs, the electric cars, knowledge of the helium spaceships. This was in Australia. Incredible to hear of it by word of mouth. Important to distinguish between when they were founded, not built. In Australia, our history was reset in 1770. Note 1776, a lot happened here, but by the British, who established a colony under military law. I'm interested in more history about this.
Yeah, so all of Australia's history is a lie. It was children that were shipped there, not adult convicts. The architecture was already there, and hence it being founded. It was found dead. It wasn't built. And they did in Australia what they did in America and lots of other places, Russia and Asia too. They've credited themselves, the British Empire, ultimately, with what would the word be? Almost kind of educating and advancing the peoples of Australia. So if we look at the narrative, you got sent to Australia for committing a crime, certain crimes. Well, at the same time, people were paying thousands of pounds to go there to live. It doesn't make sense. If you wanted to get to Australia, you could commit certain crimes and go there for free. The cages that the convicts were sent, that were actually housed in when they were transported, when they were shipped over there, are not large enough to get anything more than really a young infant in. Um, so yeah, and the World's Fairs that took place in Australia, there are World's Fairs that actually happened in places where there is no population, even now, very remote areas. So yeah, it's just another example of the British Empire colonizing somewhere and removing the actual what's the word I'm looking for? Indigenous peoples, the real people that
Yeah,
place belongs to, removing them, making them appear savage and basic and primitive, taking credit for everything, and basically giving everything a bit of a spruce up and saying it's brand new. So yeah, the whole Australia thing, that I wrote a lot about it in my first book. And then there's quite a bit about it actually in the contributors section of the sequel, Rise of the Clones. It's something that I've studied quite often, and there are paintings out there of the British arriving, the fleets arriving, the ships arriving, and in the background you'll see buildings that look like churches and windmills and so on. It's already there.
already
Um,
there.
yeah, already there. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot older than people realise.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were joking that I had somebody in my family got engaged on the weekend, so I threw a big dinner party, and we're sitting around and said to my parents, tell us your engagement story. And anyway, my dad, my dad's 5'8". He's always been called Big George, right? Because he's a Scottish warrior. That man, he'll have you. That man will have you. Anyway, so we're sitting at dinner. I said, "Go out," and they told us their sweet engagement story. When my dad met his father-in-law to be, he had a black eye because he'd had a fight with a policeman because he's so naughty. So anyway, so in England they had this thing, they called it the £10 pom. You could spend a tenner in the 60s or 50s or 60s to get, to go to Australia, but they wouldn't let my dad in. So anyway, just a little side
I wasn't allowed
story.
to go to Canada recently.
Really?
Mm,
How
yeah, because
come?
of what I've written, my first book.
Come on, it's like China, isn't it? Canada is so well. Look how many
Yeah, I
Chinese.
can't go there either.
Yeah, wow, wow,
Mm,
that's
mm.
insane. All right, let's get to this next question here. Um, okay, so this is again Alice. So amazing. She said, I knew about the Great Wall of China and how its defenses are aimed at China. Why? What was in China that was so horrific? Also, she knew the wall took about 1,000 years to build. Really? And if
No.
so, it wasn't for Genghis Khan. Like, who would have lied for 70 years? The math doesn't add up. What can we say to that? That was a bit
Yeah.
hard. Hope it's clear what she's asking.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously it didn't take 1,000 years to build. We're only 1,000 years, give or take, away from Jesus being born. 800 years were added to our timeline. We're now in 1225, so nothing took 1,000 years to build. It's actually the Great Wall of Tartaria. And as she quite rightly stated, it faces China. And the reason being is because Chinese Tartary was part of Great Tartaria, but they'd fought. Um, Genghis Khan and the Tartarians were peace-loving people. Everything you've been taught is a lie. Genghis Khan is the first person to introduce a passport for Europeans to enter Tartaria safely. That guaranteed them that if anybody stopped them, mugged them, or they were encumbered in any way, they would be answerable to him. So that he was the first person to introduce safe passage to anywhere in the world. He was also the first person to allow the practice of every single religion without ridicule in in an area of land, and we're talking about one of the largest areas in the world.
Yeah, Mongolia, Jesus. I mean,
Yeah, and of course at the time it was Russia, Asia, and a lot of Eastern Europe.
mhm.
So that person is not who you've been led to believe. And also, there are people out there that have researched this a lot further than I have. I mean, really have gone into detail with this. When Jesus was in Tibet studying, alternative medicine, meditation, and so on, that is exactly the same time that Genghis Khan was born. Genghis Khan's father, his name translates to Yeshua. And everybody that's watching this that's religious knows that that's Jesus's real name, and it was changed to Jesus, to sound more Mediterranean and more acceptable over here. So there are suggestions out there, and it's quite damning that Genghis Khan was the son of Jesus, or Yeshua, as we should really refer to him.
Now,
And
let's
that's,
give someone an opportunity right this second. When you say something like that, how people go, oh, because it hits them in their belief system, it hits them in their cellular memory, their structures. And there are so many people who say they are spiritual and they are peaceful and they are oh so loving that the minute you say something like that, they're like, "Yeah." And the
yeah,
kill
because they're
switch.
not.
Exactly. But the kill switch to violence comes on and they will condemn you to hell in a second. It's like people that hero worship people. The minute the worshipped one says, she's a this and a that, the fans, the great fans, the adorers are like, "Rah!" on that person. Like it's wicked. Humans, we are so easily influenced. We are so
Absolutely.
easily
Mm.
handled and controlled, and it's just devastating. In this day and age, so many every day there's examples,
It's
of that.
interesting you said that, because there isn't actually a single reference in the Bible to people being sent to hell.
Right,
Doesn't
right,
doesn't
yeah,
state it once anywhere. So it is interesting that people have decided that that's what happens, because it doesn't say it anywhere. A little bit like it doesn't say that we should go to church to get married and that someone's going to do it for us.
yeah.
So there's a lot of things that have been bastardized from that. And you're quite right. I tend to, when someone hits me with something and I think, wow, bloody hell, this is mad. I tend to then write it down and have a look at it when I have time. What I don't do is shoot them down. And the reason I don't is because I wasn't there.
Ta-da! There it is. You weren't there, and you got no way of proving. You could say, I was there, I teleported, and maybe you did. The
Yeah.
movie, the Back to the Future movie, is so bloody good. And I haven't watched them for years, but it's so good in terms of, when he goes back and he comes forward and he knows what's going to happen and he can help this and help that
Yeah.
situation and blah, blah, blah. It's just amazing. Last night, I made myself watch Vanilla Skies again. That's been playing in my frequency because I'm seeing how many people are in this matrix construction and they're creating these false fantasies and getting lots of followers, and it's just very confusing. I'm like, let me go back to that. And he's ultimately has a horrible accident and he's living in a lucid dream and playing off the last happy fantasies that happened before he became put in this kind of frozen program. And I'm not a fan of Tom Cruise at all. It's quite
No.
difficult. I feel sick. I've heard
No.
things about it from people that have had, sex with him and stuff. And I don't want to know. I'm not interested. But once someone tells
Oh,
you stuff, sometimes it's tricky,
can't
but you just
unhear
have
it,
to
can you?
push on. Yeah, you have to push on and ignore them and their noise and just look at like, I need information on this. I need to add more to my own, what I believe, what I, Dani Henderson, believe, and what you, Guy Anderson, believe, because we're allowed to have our beliefs and interview who the hell we like. So,
Doc,
okay.
interestingly, sorry, Doc is based upon Nikola Tesla in
Mhm.
Back to the Future. So Doc Brown,
Yes.
that's Nikola Tesla.
Oh, I love that. Where did you hear that?
Yeah, so basically what he does is he uses energy from the ether. When the lightning bolt hits the top of the clock tower, which is a Tartarian building,
Yep.
it charges enough power, creates enough energy for the flux capacitor to fire up, and then Marty McFly to go back in the DeLorean. That is based upon Nikola Tesla's research, harnessing energy
Ah,
from the ether, and then and
oh.
just so happens that it's on a Tartarian building. And incidentally, you mentioned Vanilla Skies. That's a chapter of my first book. That is early. That's a reference to hiding things within early photographs, Victorian photoshopping. It's called plating, a series of plates. They'll etch things out, airships. They'll scratch those out, put a plate from a different background in. Vanilla
Mm.
Skies is Victorian photoshopping to hide things in early photographs they don't want you seeing, like electricity cables. That's one of them.
That's so interesting. Another question people ask is, where did the name Tartaria come from? We see it on ancient globes or
Mhm.
maps of Russia, and further beyond Russia, then we're told there were mud floods there. But what is the
Mhm.
name Tartaria?
Right. Well, it's basically a region of land. Excuse me, I'm going to cough.
That's what the music
Sorry,
is for.
I'm
No,
hanging on in
darling,
here.
that's
And I
okay.
want to keep going because this is interesting.
Yeah.
So, the Tartars are a race of people that still exist today. They're in Crimea. Sorry, we've got to call it Ukraine now, haven't we? But they still exist. And the Aryan race were people that allegedly, because we don't know this for certain, but allegedly came from Atlantis. So the Tartars and the Aryans are Tartarians. So it's
Uh-huh.
that's all it basically
Uh-huh.
is. So the Aryans were bringing the knowledge from the the mystics, if you like, the priests, the people that had studied and built using sacred geometry and understood frequency and harmonics, cymatics in particular.
Mhm.
They came into the region where the Tartars were living, and the Tartars and those together created Tartaria, and that goes back to well, in theory, it goes back to Magog, but it's also to do with the original Freemasons, Hiram Abiff, who was the first master Freemason, if you like. And incidentally, for the people out there, I haven't been for nearly 10 years. You can get up and walk out. You don't have to go. I'm not a 33rd degree Freemason. They're not paying me. I don't have a helicopter. Um, Millions of people join, millions of people leave. And no one cares. You know, if you're high up and you've got things that you can't find on Google, I'm sure it's a lot harder to get out of. But Hiram Abiff was the first master mason, and that's why people wear black and sometimes black and grey striped truss, basically what we call mourning suits, when you go to a Masonic meeting because you're in mourning for the first Grand Master that was killed for not giving the handshake and the password over to three ruffians who were called the Jews. Not to be confused with the religion or a race of people. It's just their names happen to begin with J. Two of them were called Julian. So it's Juwes. And if anyone's interested in that story, check out what was written on a wall by Jack the Ripper. It's the same spelling. It's a Masonic ritual. So anyway, it's for another story. But
Oh,
so,
we've got to
yeah,
come
so
back and do more. It's good that you're addressing, and like I do as well, like sort of slightly mocking into the field to diffuse or neutralize the response to stimuli people have when the
mm,
belief system that's programmed in, I'm not programmed. Of course you are, love. We all
yeah,
bloody are.
mm,
Everyone's MK Ultra'd on every frigging level, you know. But oh no, not me, you know, and give it all to
mm,
God and give it to Jesus. That doesn't work either. Just like that. Like, stop. You know, we're here to think, we're here to learn, we're here to create our own, you know, understanding of this reality. But yeah, the Freemasons, people go, oh, I can't listen to him. He's a Freemason. He's one of them, without having a grounded understanding of how many beautiful, beautiful men and women, the Eastern Star or whatever, belong to these local lodges that are not evil. You know,
no,
been
no,
infiltrated, yes, by the evil, yeah.
yes,
But the regular people, leave them alone. And you know, the rituals. I remember years ago, I was working for a beautiful woman years ago, my first recruitment company, and she was laughing at her husband and his friend, you know, having to like raise the left trouser leg up and wear a funny,
hmm
wear an apron, and we were like peeing our pants, and these silly men, you know, because we knew nothing of the ancient rituals at that
mm,
time to any great degree. And then she's like, oh, you know, there's this ritual and that ritual, and yeah, so people they balk at it because they don't have enough information. So
yeah.
you're a Mason, so fill us in a bit more about what that actually looks like.
Well, they tend to the people that tend to sort of say things that will actually make sort of strange claims that, well, first of all, obviously about me, without knowing me, which is always a bit strange.
Hmm.
Oh, he's still a master, you know, he's still a mason, he's blah blah blah. You know, I tend to dismiss those because, like I said earlier on, you know, if you don't know someone personally really really well, how could you possibly state something like that? I mean, you've got to have something not quite right going on up here. um, But with regard to Freemasonry, I joined because I wanted to find out occulted knowledge, and I knew they knew this stuff. I knew that. We all know that. The trouble is, you don't get high up enough to ever find out unless you've got the right breeding and you're of some use to them. So, for most people that join, I saw people join because they wanted to accelerate their career. It's very useful if you're involved in government or you're employed by a government body. That could be police, politics, whatever, local council. It's very useful. So people used it to abuse it. People used it because they wanted to find out more about it. And, will we find out who built Atlantis if we join? That's me and my father and my youngest son. None of us go anymore. And then there were a lot of people that joined because they were widowers. Predominantly, most Freemasons are older. Now, you think, let's just say, for example, my dad moved to Tenerife about 20 years ago. He's no longer with my mother. He lives alone. He doesn't have many friends there. A lot of the expats went after Brexit. If he was to return to Freemasonry, there is a lodge in Tenerife. Everywhere has them. Every town, major town, city in the world has them, at least one or two. If he was to join back tomorrow, he would have a new circle of friends and a social life again. And I watched a lot of older people join, a lot of older men join because they'd lost their wife and felt lonely. There
Mm.
are also people that join just because they want to raise money for charity, and it's always children's charities. But what we do know is that when you get higher up than people like me, I am your average Freemason. Not many people get much higher than that. What happens beyond that? That's where everything changes. So I have no doubt in my mind that it's nefarious. But the run of the mill people that you see going to the lodge meetings that go every Friday or whenever it is and have a few beers in the pub afterwards wearing their morning suits, they're not nefarious. They're not doing anything satanic. It's absolute nonsense. And the majority of people who will state something about that, my answer is always the same. How long have you been a Freemason? And the answer is every single time, I'm not. Then what on earth are you qualified to talk about? Explain. You've got to be in it to see it for what it really is.
Totally. Very, very good and very good holding your ground there. And because people need a talking to, they do. We all do. I do at times as well, and I'll take it.
Yeah,
You
I get it
can't
every
know.
day.
Yeah, right, exactly. Everyone's getting so triggered and so aggressive,
Mm,
and they hear one thing and that's it. Now they're the authority and they know because so and so
mm,
said, and everything so and so said is true. No, it's not. I guarantee you that too. Every single person, there isn't a person. Everybody screws up. Everybody says wrong
mm.
information sometimes because not every single soul has every single answer in this vessel at this time. And I do believe
Yeah.
that.
And you're
Yeah,
allowed to
so
change your mind. I when I started
totally.
looking at Tartaria, I just saw it as this old empire that had been hidden. And people kept saying to me it's connected to Jesus and the millennial reign of Christ. Jesus reigned for 1,000 years. I'm saying, well, okay, great, whatever. And I carried on digging and digging and digging. And then one day I thought, hold on a minute, this all seems to align. So I actually came out and said it. I was wrong. I thought they were two different things and that religion was sort of hijacking a period of time. But actually, the more I've looked into this, the more I see I'm talking about the same thing. It's just I'm talking about a region of land and a race of people. The millennial reign of Christ is talking about the time, 1,000 years when all this happened. And
Mm.
so, I actually came out and said that and I did this on Facebook, and literally, about, I don't know, sort of 1,000, 1,200 people said, wow, you've connected these dots. It makes sense. Of course, you had the odd person on there saying, what does he know? This is actually the truth. And I know that because I'm 1,000 years old, and I was there. But you've got to say you're wrong. I thought that Donald Trump was the third coming of the, I don't know if we can say it on YouTube, the AC.
Right.
What we were fearing. Napoleon, they say, was one of them, and that the third will arrive. He'll be seen on the banks of the River Nile, and blah blah blah. And I kept thinking, well, it's got to be Donald Trump. It's got to be Donald Trump. I did a bit more digging, and I came to a completely different conclusion that it
Mm.
was a former prime minister of Britain. And I had to put that on my website blog because I couldn't put that on Facebook because I knew I'd be shut down because
Mhm.
I found an MI5 document that had something in it that shouldn't really be there.
Really? On Tony Blair?
Oh, you're saying it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
balls,
Oh,
balls. I mean,
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we
Yeah.
got to, the people
Owns the
need to
land on.
know. They got to have information to go check out for themselves, to go have a look. It's like, everything I've been told about Trump, about Elon Musk, about this. I don't believe any of the people now. I don't believe a single one. I've seen bad behaviors from these people who claim this. So I'm just taking my own counsel. I will decide. I will not be told or handled. And there's too many people out there trying to handle people. And I've seen Trump do some wonderful things. He might be the biggest tosser in the world. I haven't yet decided. I'm watching them all still. Do you know what I mean? And it's okay.
Yeah, we've got to. We've got to watch them.
Yeah.
And we were told that, Nostradamus and Dolores Cannon more recently said that, this person will be seen on the bank of the River Nile at a particular time. And I looked into it, and he and his wife Cherie had bought land on the bank of the River Nile at exactly the same time. I then did some digging, found out that actually he's a Rothschild, and his whole backstory, even his date of birth, everything's been uh, falsified. None of it's true. And he even in his autobiography, he actually suggests that he is not who we believe him to be. And when he first came in as prime minister, there were a lot of posters out there that people were putting as the opposition, a lot of things, memes and so on. I suppose early what we'd call memes now, where they'd replace his eyes and put demonic eyes in there. And it was always there. He is the Tony Blair Faith Foundation. He's trying to start one world religion. He's behind
Mm,
digital ID more than anybody else.
yeah. And a
And
member of
also,
the
he was
West.
a big push of the pandemic. He was a big pusher on digital ID then. Um, it's yeah, it looks, I don't know for certain, but what I found I put on my website on a blog and left it for people to decide. But I wasn't expecting it to be him. I wasn't looking for it to be him. I just read something and thought, oh my God, how did I miss that? And then I used ChatGPT and I interrogated it. And I said, I want to know if Tony Blair has a human blood group. And I said, now you can reply yes, no, or compromised. You can only give me a one-word answer on this. Compromised was the answer. I said, okay, so if he did have a human blood group, would you have just said, yes, he does? Yes. I said, well, you replied compromised. Yes. That's because you can't tell me the truth, isn't it? Yes. That's because no one must ever know. Yes. I said, okay, so is it suggesting that his blood group and his DNA are not human? Compromised. I said, okay, once again, if his blood group and DNA were human, would you have just said yes? Yes. I said, okay, so you're basically telling me without having to say it that he's not who we think he is, and his blood group is different to the rest of ours, as is his DNA. Yes. Is he a member of the Rothschild family? Compromised. So I did some digging and some more digging, and then it sent me a link, and I read that, and then I had a look at I found online an extract from his book, and then I found the MI5 document, and I put it all into this blog, and I was looking at it being Trump. That was where I was coming from. At no point did I even think it was Tony Blair, but it all stacks up. Yeah, and it
Yeah.
makes sense the more you look at it.
So incredible. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's just so fascinating. Gosh. All right, let's get to another quick question here.
Mm.
Old world fairs with the beautiful buildings. Who made them?
Well, it depends where you are in the world, but the architecture we would say is Greco-Roman. And it's interesting because Samoa had a World's Fair. They were in New Zealand, Tasmania, South America, everywhere in the world. Every city in the world had a World's Fair, and they all look the same. So typically we'd say Greco-Roman, but it can't be, of course, because these took place in places where, when these were built, the people building them hadn't been anywhere to see Greco-Roman buildings. The architecture is Moorish. It's the Moors. They came from
Moors.
North Africa.
Mhm.
Yeah, and all of that influence went through Europe. So if you're in Spain and Portugal in particular, the architecture there He's all Moorish. He came across into England, and then went slowly into America as well. So yeah, it's Moorish architecture. The Moors, they've been totally discredited. They're the people that built everything in America, the White House, the lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of easy, like in the modern day thinking, let's say the thinking of the last 70 years, because again, we're systemized, we're genocided, we're programmed to
Mm.
respond. The Moors, these were beautiful black people, black, black, black. Is it because you is black, you is a Moor? Yes, it is. And we go, oh my God, Danny Henderson's such a racist. Like, shut up again. Like, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. Um, Given that they've tried to, the system again, try to delete the true people of our beautiful planet and, make Jesus white, a blue-eyed blonde and all that silliness, let's look at a race of people that are rarely spoken about and get your take on it, the Etruscans.
I don't really. It's not something I've really looked into. It
Okay.
isn't an area I've really researched, to be
Yeah,
honest
so
with you.
between
What,
the Greeks and the Romans, the Etruscans, Tuscany,
yeah, and there is a specific reason for that. Because I've studied Anatoly Fomenko's work, I actually got a book near me, and I sort of the nuts and bolts of his work I put in my first book. But this is Anatoly Fomenko.
mhm.
Now, he claims that the Roman and Greek empires, if you like, never actually existed. They didn't exist. They've just been put there. That we're talking about Atlantean buildings and old world classical, what they call the golden era, and that they invented these two civilizations to slowly show us once again this advancement of understanding mathematics, of slowly starting to build in a particular way, and so on. So it's not something that I've looked into because I'm still very much on the fence with Anatoly Fomenko's work. I think that those periods of time, those civilizations, may well not be quite what we think they are.
Good point.
Just
Good.
a construct.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Do you believe the Roman Empire existed and still exists today under the guise of the Vatican?
Not in the way that people think. I don't think they built anything. I think
Hmm.
those buildings are a lot older.
Yeah.
And again, it's a backstory. And the Roman Empire is basically the Roman Catholic Church. It's still very much alive today. And anybody, Catholicism is a pretty strange religion. The fact that you can go and do something really awful and be forgiven by someone who claims to represent God without ever actually having spoken to them or been given permission to do so. I don't think you can go out there and do something really, really disgusting and be forgiven by someone who's a representative. And if you do what they say, they'll have a word with him because they're on first name terms and they'll get you in regardless. You
Mhm.
could you could be a mass murderer, convert to Catholicism on your deathbed and be forgiven for everything you've ever done. It's utter nonsense. It's control, power and control. It was about wealth. And obviously now with fiat currency, there's no such thing as money anymore. They don't need our money. It's just about crippling us. Um, the Roman Empire is basically the Roman Catholic Church. That's all it ever was, and that's all it ever will be. And so it's like the British Empire that still exists in the square mile in the city of London,
Uh,
alive and well. And we've got the Roman Empire, which is the Roman Catholic Church. So, yes, I believe in it as an organization, but I don't necessarily believe that they should be credited for everything that we've given them credit for.
I agree with you. Another question here from Marcy Minaj. Hang on a sec. Let me put my glasses back on. Yeah, Marcy and Minaj. Okay. Where did all the Tartarians go? Why are there no people in so many of the pictures? Never mind in their technologies at their fairs.
They're dead. They were killed. So what they did was most of the men killed each other through the fake civil and Napoleonic wars. And by fake, I mean that these weren't people that were fighting against each other for peace or because they had an issue. There were people forced to fight each other for reasons they didn't know. And people that have spoken to me that have letters written from them from their great great grandparents saying, when the dust cleared or when we got over the brow of the hill, we saw we'd been firing at people or attacking people that were wearing the same uniform
Mhm.
as us, and so on. There's a lot of evidence for that. So they got us to kill each other, which decreased the population. But what they did with the women was really clever. The same time that's going on, they introduced the Lunacy Act, and that meant if your husband died in battle, you were committed to an asylum because you were immediately considered insane. A widow with children would be automatically considered insane. So they would be locked away in an asylum, the children taken and shipped off to anywhere to repopulate. So the reason there aren't many people in the old photographs is because for a period of time, there wasn't anyone. The men that came back that wouldn't comply, or men that never went to war, would be either told to conform or they were sent to prisons. Prisons, orphanages, and asylums opened overnight in every town and city in the world. Late 1800s, all of a sudden, everyone's being incarcerated. Sorry, I beg your pardon. From the late 1700s, everybody's being incarcerated, and that continued for well over 100 years. So they repopulated, and that's, they were taking children away. Then we've got the Cabbage Patch babies and so on. So they started again, and what you'll see in a lot of those photographs of the world's fairs, you won't see any children in them, and the adults look out of place. And there are photographs of them on the beaches, and they're all wearing suits and hats and dresses. They hadn't seen it before. These people were picked up and plonked somewhere that they weren't from. They hadn't a clue what was going on, and that's why these world's fairs, in my mind, should be rebranded as whitewashing and brainwashing. That was the exercise there. Whitewash history, make out that the British Empire is, look at what we've done. All of these creations, all these inventions, come and check out the technology. Look at this brilliant building. And by the way, everything you're looking at was done by white people.
Hmm. Hmm.
They've whitewashed the lot.
Mm. But the technology did exist. The buildings were there,
Absolutely.
founded, and they were kept on
Founded,
track.
yeah.
They throw up these hideous looking. I mean, it's so annoying that these monstrous, soulless, they're the NPCs, non-player characters. The evil, full of the program to take over, to dominate. I mean, we are seeing
Yeah.
them tumbling down. That's why more of us speak out about it. We're putting information together. We will never allow our planet to be taken over in the long-term plan they had. I do believe the beast is dying. I do believe that
Yes.
are being revealed for who they are. I also believe there are people who are in a leadership role on every level across YouTube, across the world, across government, states, and militaries who have literally hit what I call their glass ceiling. They don't have any more information. They've taken it as far as they can. Some of them are misbehaving. Some of them are trying to create cult-like whatever. And then fine, just get lost. Just move along because we got to keep going, mowing everyone down that tries to stop the love of these beautiful beings that we are. We are incredible, amazing, magical beings with this beautiful power and this connection to original source, who I'm going to kick up the arse when I see them, by the way, because there's so many things unanswered. And I think it's gone a bit too far with all the suffering of everybody on the world. I don't think we should ever have, I don't know, whatever has created all this kind of monstrous pain and suffering, it's not okay. None of us would have signed up for it. And when we all leave on the day we leave and, we go home and, oh, it'll be fine, you'll understand it. I'm still hopefully going to say bollocks. Bollocks. You shouldn't have done that. You are wrong. That was a shit idea. You fucked up there. I'm not okay with this. No, not to my brothers and my sisters. Not having it. Not having a little quick discussion on, well, this is the reason why. You signed up for it. Earth School. You've got to learn lessons. Bollocks to that too. It's not good enough for me knowing what everyone suffers and goes through. So that's just, again, my little two penneth worth. Let's pull up another question here. This one is so long. Teachers so flight. Okay. Would reveal systematic timelines if present. The test. If flamenco is correct about 800-year addition, astronomical back calculations of ancient events should be 800 years off from claimed dates. Geological ice core EM signatures should show civilization peak 800 years later than official history. I'll stop there because it does go on and it's very well written, but what can you say to that at this point?
Well, they're basing everything off of what they've read, aren't they?
Yes, it
So
was
it's,
so.
yes, it's immediately dismissed. And that's the problem. All they need to do is look at the civilization population, alleged population. 1776, 770, 740 million people. 100 years later, it had doubled, but during the same period of time, 3.35 billion people had died. Now, anyone with a calculator can quickly realize that that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even begin to calculate. But the problem is, first of all, I would, who am I to question Anatoly Fomenko? The man was considered to be an absolute genius. And he was one of three Russian scientists that were all working on this. So, I'm not about to challenge Anatoly Fomenko's work, but I would recommend people read it. But secondly, when you're getting information from the very system that's been used to give us false information, we even know carbon dating is fundamentally flawed. That we were brought up thinking you could count the rings in a tree stump to see how old the tree is, and then found out that's not true. Um, we're going about it with the wrong information to start with. So it then becomes nonsensical. So you can't actually support any of that with academia because you're basing everything that you're firing at, say, Anatoly Fomenko's work, with something you've read or found online. Now he wasn't doing that. And I would urge whoever that comment was from to read the new chronology by Anatoly Fomenko. Read that, and hopefully that'll fill in the blanks for them.
Brilliant. Gosh, there's just so much and so many different places we could go. I know we want to talk a little bit about more about like these Cabbage Patch Kids in these
Mm,
cloning facilities. Can you give us some information? Again, I know we've gone over certain things, but let's just pull it back to that point.
mm.
This person here says, "Are the Cabbage Patch children now NCPs?" But really, the more important question is, what are the Cabbage Patch Kids? How are they made? Where are they from? Why do they even come into existence?
Well, first of all, a lot of people believe that it started in Germany, and my research suggests the same. And this is where the word kindergarten comes from. And it was Slavic folklore, actually, more Slavic, that children were found in the bottom of the garden and storks delivered them and so on. That's old Slavic.
Yeah.
And cabbage patches as well. That again is Slavic. But it seems to be more Germany. That's certainly where the postcards started that were showing children being born or plucked from cabbage patches. And we know that from my research and most people that have actually researched thoroughly Tartaria, that Germany appeared to be really the last country operating as a Tartarian um, infrastructure, if you like, and that's why what happened. Dresden, for example, that's why they annihilated it. They were getting rid of people and technology, architecture, and that's why the Germans were far more technologically advanced. That's the reason for the Society of the Elect being founded by Cecil Rhodes. So we know that's out there for people to read in books that are old, not online and Wikipedia and so on, but
Yeah.
actually reading proper material. Um, so it looks like it started in Germany, and the reason that they were depicted as growing from the ground and in cabbages, as I said, goes back to Slavic folklore, but it also connects to it being underground. Now, some people say it was almost like a lab facility that was deep underground. Some people say that these are what are now the dumb bases. These deep underground military bases are a lot older than we've been told, and that they've been cloning forever. Now, anybody that's read the Old Testament will probably know that the story of Adam and Eve, well, the whole Old Testament is based on the Epic of Gilgamesh. The Emerald Tablets, and so on. The Sumerian stories of us being created. But even if you look at the Old Testament, it's telling you in there that they take the rib of one person and make another life with it. It's describing cloning. It could be a metaphor, still describing cloning. So that's what they believe took place. That it started in Germany underground. That they started to repopulate, and they were doing it in Germany
Mhm.
because they wanted their people, the people that had this information. They wanted them back. The Tartarians. A lot have been killed through civil and Napoleonic wars. They wanted to repopulate using these, and they started doing it everywhere. So the technology to have cloning goes back to the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki, obviously Amun-Ra, Marduk. We're talking about the Rothschilds there. I think they've always had this technology, but it was hijacked at some point and used for a very different purpose. So instead of repopulating like they tried to do in Germany with Tartar Aryans, people that had inbuilt into them this the DNA of esoteric knowledge, sacred geometry, all there, all being shared with these people, it started being used to repopulate by other nefarious groups of people too, for a different reason. Let's give these a blank sheet. Let's wipe the memory. These are going to grow up knowing exactly what we want them to know. So yeah, so it's connected to deep underground military bases, and it appears to have started in Germany, hence kindergarten.
Amazing. So interesting. Years ago, I made a documentary. It's called Psychic Secrets, and we went and investigated a place in La Jolla, California. La Jolla is spelled L-L-L-A, new word, Jolla, La Jolla. It's a really, it's just fascinating place. And there's a cave there, cave store, old-fashioned building, and you go down these chiseled stairs, and we did readings. We were doing a paranormal investigation there. And Okay, now I've just completely forgotten what I was going to say. La Jolla, California. I don't know. People
Deep
go
underground military
deep
bases or
underground. Well,
cloning, kindergarten.
oh, kindergarten. So after we'd gone in with cameras, after I'd proved that me and my friend Nita, God rest her soul, I love you, Nita Ryson, and another couple, Dr. Chris Lamont, who's been a mentor of mine in the past, and his wife Deborah, they went and separately investigated, and we were able to prove that there's many different ways that people read information, read language, read auditory information, psychically read, project through third eye. These are some of the things I've been living and working over the years to prove how amazing we are and the things we can do. I when we were going back, the original Anna someone, whatever her name is, probably Anna Gosson, I don't know, I can't remember now. So long ago, early 2000s when I did this. That one of the very first kindergarten in America was set up in La Jolla, in that whole area. Just so interesting, of course, originally from Germany. So now, have you heard of a man called Gene Decode?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to get him on my channel soon, but the first thing I'm going to ask him, because of all the programming and the handling that's been happening around my world, with people saying, don't interview him, he's grey, he's a grey alien, don't touch her, she's CIA. From now on, anyone I get on, I'm going to go, Oi, Joe, are you or are you not CIA, infiltration, this and that, right? So I can no longer be handled and I will interview whoever I like without people breaking down and tantrum at me because it's ridiculous. Because
It's
I feel
strange though, isn't it?
so strange. It's
Hmm.
so strange,
This person's of this person's of that. I could put up a post today, and I don't know. Let's say I just put a picture of my wife up, and if I could imagine that nobody knew what she looked like, and I put one up saying this is a Hollywood celebrity that I'm currently researching, the amount of people say she's a man, she's a man. I've put a triangle over her skull, and she's a man. And look at the hips and the shoulder and the pattern here. Yeah, she's a man. Pack it in. Someone said to me the other day, "Do you think Princess Diana was a man?" I said, "Well, no, but I can't be certain because I haven't medically examined her."
That's a good response. But it
How
comes
the
down to
hell?
that. I
People
know,
telling you who you should have on your channel.
I
This
know.
person's a grey. This
For
person's that.
years,
Where
for
are you
years.
getting this from?
I know.
Some
You
people
know.
are picking it up in their knitting needles or in their tea leaves.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not good
great.
enough. If
So
you're going to
not. Don't
come
worry.
out with something like
I've
that,
yeah, I've unhooked the leash. No, it's no longer attached to me. So, but yeah, it's a thing definitely. And I've heard people say Dani Henderson, she's a man. I'm like, no, I've checked. Yeah, I'm not a man. But yeah, but people do that. They don't want you to go look or connect to, or they want to try and keep everything really small. But we need to expand. Everybody needs to expand. At my conferences, I now have people like Praveen Mohan, who's you've got millions of people following him, and he's great, not because of his following, because of the work he's doing and how much it's touching people on
mm,
ancient temples. Billy Carson, fantastic researcher, big personality, stores amazing information. Doesn't mean everything he says is right because he's also researching what's there, but he's also had some spiritual experiences and ET experiences. So I find him, a bit more interesting than most. And Kathy O'Brien, who's revealing all the information in the White House and the Pentagon and the filthy paedophile monsters there in, you know. So these are the people I'm really kind of expanding out. And what that does, it obviously opens up the rest of the world because, you know, let's say, for example, if I was just focusing mostly on at one point like galactic information, which I really, really was and still am and hold it dear to my heart. I've seen ETs, they exist. No one's going to tell me different. Saw them with my own eyes, had a lot of interaction with different things over the years. But it gets to a point where, right, okay, we've got all the ET stuff done. It's still rolling out here and there, but now we've got to land and ground in all the rest because it's all connected. Everything's connected, so we can't leave gaps. And
Mm.
people saying, don't talk about this, don't do that. No, I ain't listening to you. I'm swiping you to the side and I'm moving forward. And we all have to do that. And it takes courage. People like you and me have been kept apart, you know, because people might consider me a bit woo. There's nothing woo about me. I'll give you a good slap. How's that for woo? You know, but you kind of a scholar, academic, like we've got to merge our worlds. We've got to
Mm.
bring and land.
Absolutely.
And even if we disagree with each other, it doesn't matter. Am I going to have a tantrum if I don't believe everything you say? No, I'm going to listen to you, let you talk. Might come in with something, say, well, I heard this. I'm not going to say, fucking wrong, guy, you know.
Mm.
You grey ET, you're run by the greys, you are. You have a demon attached to you. It's insane. It's insane. No more. No more. Well, let's get to another question.
Go for it.
Um, oh, this is nice. I just want to say thank you to Lady Sophia Sage. She's Danny, your podcast is very important. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you. I will take that. I will take that. Okay. Here is uh, Annie Clausur. Right. Brilliant interview. Can't wait for part two. This is part two. My question would be, how do we survive this coming reset and what do you think it will look like? Tesla spoke of time travel, and how did he suggest we could do that? Can we all access it? Brilliant. I have known about Tartaria for years, but not in its entirety. Guy's research fills in so many blanks for me.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, first of all, we don't really know what Tesla wrote about time travel because allegedly John G. Trump kept it and has never given it back, and it's now with Donald. And then we've got the whole Ingersoll Lockwood books to consider. That he writes about Baron Trump, the adventurer, going into Agartha, and then he writes about the last president, this show busy kind of man from New York becoming the president against all odds and blah, blah, blah. So we've got all that to contend with. But, so we don't really know what Tesla wrote about time travel because, if we follow the narrative, we never got to see that. It was taken and is still hidden. It wasn't even handed to the FBI. With regard to what do we do to get through this, we're going to lose a lot of people, and these are the people that we can't wake up. Um, the push for us to have the Neuralink fitted will increase by 2032. The parasites want everybody to have the Neuralink fitted, so we've got this hive mind going on.
Mhm.
I think we're going to see a lot of war. I think we'll see, a lot more disease, allegedly, a few outbreaks maybe. So I think that that's what we've got to come. They're going to make things very, very difficult. But I believe that the people that are awake, the people that will resist, we're going to pop out the other end. Now, I keep saying to a few people specifically, actually, who consistently share me news clips and footage from newspapers and the BBC, you've got to stop engaging. We have to forget about what's going on in the world, focus on us. We've got to look at what we eat, what we watch, what we ingest. We've got to look at who we spend our time on, what we spend our energy on. I think we've now got to really work on us. Um, and if we make it through, then I think we'll be rewarded for doing it. So almost, I would say, we've got to kind of raise our vibration and frequency. And the best way to do that is to stop poisoning our bodies and our minds by taking in, whether it's through information or through food or what we even rub into our skin. We've got to remove toxins and poison. And
Totally.
we've got to unite, I don't
Got to
think it,
unite.
yeah, but if we stand together, us 20%, the ones that can awaken, if we unite and put our differences aside and agree to disagree on certain things, then that would really worry them. they want us to divide. That's why they're attacking religion at the moment, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's why we've got the immigration thing. Let's hate them because they're different to us. Let's hate them because they believe something different. How simple-minded are you, or narrow-minded are you, if you could hate someone over something they think or the way that they look?
Hmm.
Perhaps there's no place for you where we're going next. So I think we've got to unite, and we've got to look at raising our vibration.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so true. That's so true. It's been said 1,000 times on this channel as well. You got to raise your vibration. You got to raise your
Mm,
frequency. You got to recognize that when you're in the higher frequency electromagnetic field, you cannot be owned. You cannot be stressed. My good friend Kathy O'Brien, you wouldn't imagine the torture she went through. Had to see her own little girl be harmed and tortured by people like George Bush Sr., a filth pedo,
mm,
dirty, dirty monster. And yet, when you sit with her, it's like sitting with an angelic frequency. She beams that healing. She beams that full recovered soul. And there's just no one like her that I can use as, as an example. And, it's like people that come back and they say, I am the reincarnation of blah, blah. I am the reincarnation of
mm,
whatever. I am the one that did this. It's like, so what? What are you going to do with that, love or mate?
mm.
What are you going to do with that? It's like, let's imagine if Cleopatra Ptolemy steps back. Some woman goes, I am the last queen of Egypt. I am Cleopatra Ptolemy. We'd be like, okay, your family ruled the last 300 years of Egypt, but actually, who did build those fucking pyramids?
Yeah,
Tell us!
yeah.
Tell us!
Why did you
It's
keep
like,
sleeping with your
tell us!
brothers?
Huh?
Yeah. And why did you keep sleeping with your brothers?
Right, apparently.
Yeah.
Allegedly,
Allegedly.
guy. Yes,
Yeah.
you seductress, you have spoken all the
Yeah.
languages, and Julius Caesar seducer and Mark Antony seducer.
Yeah.
Great, great
Not sure
stories.
I believe any of that, but
Yeah, beauty
yeah.
products and drinking paraffin to make her eyes purple and great stories. But love,
Mm.
anyone, it's so many women that are like, I am Cleopatra. No, I am Cleopatra. I was like, could the real Cleopatra please step forward?
Yeah.
You're going to claim a past life, be interesting and tell us what is the science we need to know? What is the proof? Answer the questions we need answered. Yeah, it is funny. It is funny. And we're all special. We've all had past lives. We're all lovely. We've all got something to bring back. I know we're coming up to our time here. I'm getting on a call with my friend Shanti in South Africa. She's got a great channel. Have you been on there yet?
No.
Oh, let me introduce you to her. Let me make a note. Shanti. She's lovely. She's a wonderful human being. And we got you in South Africa then. Right? We got to spread the word of you,
Yeah.
Mr. Guy
Thank
Anderson.
you.
Of course. That's what we do. That's what I do. I'm always sharing people. We gotta share people.
Mm.
There's people with massive channels where you should be on them, right? Mine is shadow banned and they keep it small and but I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. Okay, let's have a look. Um, this is Mel P6, right? She says, oh, it's not 1 o'clock yet, is it? Because Shanti just went in the Zoom room. No, we've got 2 minutes. Oh shit, we've got 2 minutes to go. Um, okay, I tell you what we're gonna do. We got to come back. Oh,
Sure.
we got to come back. We've got so many more questions here to go through, and there'll be more after this broadcast. So, guys, put your questions for Guy for next time, whatever you like, underneath the comments section as you're watching this. Don't do it in the live chat, do it in the comments section, and then we'll get back to these and the new ones that come in. And thank you so much. You're
A
wonderful
pleasure.
coming on, feeling the flu and
Pleasure.
everything else. So, what would you like to finish with to the beautiful audience?
I don't know. I don't know. I kind of needed a warning for that.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
I don't know. What would I say?
Tell us
I
what
just think well, I suppose if it's a personal thing, um, I would say that, don't take my word for everything. Everything that I share with people, it's based upon years of research, and my books evidence it. I even put the names of the books I've got the information from in my books and the people that have shared the information. It's all
uh-huh.
in there. But my hope is that I give people enough information to go on and have a look for themselves if they're interested in a particular topic I discuss. Don't go out there and say, this didn't happen, that didn't happen, this can't be true, that can't be true. Look for yourselves. I've given some sort of breadcrumbs, really, I suppose, and it's for people to decide whether or not they're going to invest the time to look, but never dismiss anything. Um, we know that we're lied to. We know our history is a lie, so that means everything's open for debate. So I would say don't take anybody's word for anything, and when you're next going to give somebody counter argument, don't use ChatGPT or Wikipedia.
Very good. Very,
Mm,
very good. Yeah, I've never used it, not used it once, and it's not going to become sentient. It is still artificial. It will
mm,
mimic, it will patronize, it will copy, it will say what you want it to say as well. I'm very
absolutely.
happy to talk
Yeah,
about
just
that next time.
regurgitate it.
Totally, totally. Well, Guy Anderson, thank you so much. Have
It's a
so much
pleasure.
respect for you. Really enjoyed you, and we'll see you next time. And to the
Thank
audience,
you.
oh, thank you, Guy. And to the audience, get over to Guy's website, join his Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids Facebook group. I'm there. Get his books. Everything is listed underneath this broadcast to connect with him. He is a very important voice in this time of full and utter disclosure. And my name is Dani Henderson, and as always, I send you all love from my heart to yours, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Guy.
Thank you.